I already see a lot of questions about borrow powered, which I do think we can lean into a little bit here. It says, what possible alternatives for borrowed power system like Covenant's Azerite could you imagine be placed in the game to progress your character?
I'm not sure I understand the question. So borrow power is the concept where you get it for this expansion, they take it away the next at the end and give you something new.
That's the idea.
It is the most overused term by the community right now.
Right.
And it actually doesn't mean what it used to nearly as much. I don't think people understand what the idea of borrowed power really was anymore.
So does it work as a concept, I guess, is the question. Should it be used? Is that a fair assessment of that
Pretty
question?
much, yeah.
Yeah. How do you actually feel about the idea of having borrowed power in the game?
Yeah, it's not good. It's not good. I understand how they've gotten to the point where they think it's good, because they've had to expand the game, 8 times. Mm-hmm. And it's hard to just keep giving more and more power because you have power creep, and that's a real issue. You want to feel like your character's progressing in a meaningful way every expansion, but that leads to big problems. So yeah, like I get to ask this a lot on my channel as well, is do we have to add 10 levels every time we expand? And the answer, I think, is no. I think it's an easy place to go to, especially when you're trying to get people hyped about the new expansion. We're going to give you 10 more levels. We're going to give you all this extra power. Everyone's going to be twice the god they were in the last expansion, but in terms of like making people happy with an expansion, I think content is a big part of it. And you have to have people progress a little bit, but not nearly as much as I feel like traditional expansions do. So I think it comes at too high a cost, basically.
And I actually kind of want to because kind of how I alluded to the idea of borrowed power gets thrown around a lot. And, if you actually get down to what some people are saying, they literally get to the place where it's like, yeah, I don't keep my gear forever. It's borrowed power, right? Which obviously isn't what the term does mean.
Yeah.
So when you look at a system, where do you kind of draw the line? Like, what is that aspect? Like when you look at legendaries, for example, that was one of the real things that started to bring up that discussion in Legion of borrowed power. So what systems, like what is the property of a system that you would define it being this borrowed power idea?
Yeah, anything that's temporary, anything that's going to become a part of you that you're going to have to get rid of in the future. So you could even consider some of the things they've pruned in terms of class abilities as borrowed power on a longer scale. You got to be real careful with that stuff because again, it's they don't have to be because they don't care about identity. But back in the day, we cared about this being a part of you. Remember when I could do this, this made me feel good. This is the thing I loved. People come into my channel all the time and they're like, you know what I love? The chain lightning sound effect.
Yeah.
Right? And it's just this weird thing that really connected with somebody. And it's like, if we were to just take chain lightning away one day, guys lost a big part of what he loved about the game. So it's really you have to be really careful with stuff like that when you take stuff away. And people get attached to things very quickly, very easily, and very powerfully. And so you have to control how fast stuff comes in, and you have to be really careful about taking it away. It shouldn't be these planned decisions, right? Like, I'm going to give you something you really want, and the intention is it's going to go away next patch. Like, when I hear that in a design meeting, I'm like, whoa, that sounds the exact opposite of the kind of thing we should be doing to players.
That's what happened a lot in BFA, is we've gotten tons of really cool things that we all know are going to go away. I'm kind of sad about some of them, but happy about others. But it is really kind of weird where it's so much of your gameplay is just fleeting. Whereas in Burning Crusade and Wrath, whenever you would get your new spells, you knew that you'd take those into the next expansion too. I preferred that.
Right. Yeah. And I don't want to segue into a whole discussion on Torghast, but that's Torghast in a nutshell right there.
Yeah.
Very quick. I mean, it's the accelerated borrowed power mechanism.
We're going to have another episode on Torghast. I actually think we could have a full episode with you on Torghast. It would be really interesting.
My prediction, my TLDR is just it's going to be a gigantic mistake. It's going to cause so much damage. Yep.
Why do you think that?
Just super fun.
Okay.
For a very short time, and then it's going to cause unbelievable damage to the game.
I hope not.
Do you play many roguelikes currently?
I love roguelikes.
Yeah, so do I. And one of the things that's so surprising with me with Torghast is all of the things that make the fundamental design of those games work don't really exist in Torghast. It's so absurd to me.
Right.
Like
really funny.
Like none of it is there. None of those systems are there, and it actually blows my mind. The whole idea. I think one of the reasons that those games continue to win is just that idea of you go in with a plan, and you get surprised. You finish playing, and you go, "Well, dude, I got to do it with this now because I wanted to do it the first time." And you play to actually almost like make that Rube Goldberg machine go. And with Torghast, it's just flat passive increases to damage. It's like flat stat increases.
10% versatility.
There's no nuance. Yeah.
Oh boy.
It's definitely a weird thing. I do want to ask with the borrow power thing, because I'm very interested with a lot of your opinions on this. I feel like now in particular you start to have some of these systems like the Legion legendaries, like the artifact weapons, where like Asmon just mentioned, you're getting abilities tied to these. Do you think that there ever is an appropriate place to dramatically modify a player's ability, whether it's like corruption, slowing a target like Sacrolash did, or do you think that there's a place for that on gear, or do you think that shouldn't be found in gear?
Pet battles, maybe.
Ooh.
Put it all in pet battles.
That's right. Yeah, it's really tough. It's really tough to do those things. Like, we had this like controlled, steady plan. Like back in the day when we were making vanilla, we had spreadsheets that went out to level 100, and we tried to plan for the very careful, methodical increases in power. Obviously, those plans got thrown out.
Yeah.
For TBC development, but I think, I still think that was a mistake. But yeah, like it should be very careful. It should be very controlled. And I think people at the end of the day, they appreciate things when they're a little more grounded. Like, I think a lot of people make fun of like BFA right now, because it's like every time I auto attack, I hit for 5 million, or some huge number, right? Just feels wrong, just feels weird. And then also like the amount people will go through to get +1 to an attribute, has been proven since the days of EverQuest. Like, people would do insane things and put in countless amount of time for +1 in one attribute, right? So I don't think we respect those two things enough, both sides of that equation, and realize the value of controlling things and being more methodical. I think designers can fall into the trap of that instant massive gratification of all of a sudden I kill the first boar in Hellfire and I'm a god because I just replaced all of my gear with this loot pinata, right?
I didn't like that, man. Like, I didn't like how, like, whenever BC came out, it just made all the vanilla raids irrelevant.
Right.
I don't know. Like, and now
that was the specific designer. Like this, I had arguments with the item designers, and I got overruled because I wasn't an item designer. But that essential thing is like they had this perception that players need to feel the difference in every swing with every piece of new gear they get, and I was just like, they really don't. It can be a more slow, gradual process. They need to know that they're progressing, but they don't need planet destroying improvements, with every new piece of gear.
Well, it's like now it's in BFA, like every patch you see like massive power growth. Like you see more power growth in one patch in the current expansion than you did all throughout Burning Crusade.
Yeah, and it's very unsustainable, right? Like that's why they have number crutches and level squishes and all that. nonsense.
And it takes form in many different ways, right? So I mean, obviously you don't have that jigsaw progression, you don't have that milestone progression that you used to feel in a lot of ways, but